What's going on, everybody? Just a quick video testing a couple different things. First of all, as you can probably tell from the camera, new toy added to the rig. Uh, just got the Accuforce V2 direct drive wheel. Um, to it's replaced my Logitech G29. I've been playing with it enough to know that it's working, so now it's just a matter of perfecting settings in the cars that I drive the most. So been playing with some NASCAR stuff and um, some the iGPS stuff with the McLaren MP430. Obviously got a little ways to go. I'm not real big into reviews. I'm not nearly famous enough on YouTube to be doing reviews for stuff, so um, don't expect that anytime soon. But I'll definitely give some impressions because this is already just out of the box. It surprised me in many ways. The wheelbase itself surprised me in how heavy it was, and then the steering wheel was incredibly shocking. It was the first thing I pulled out of the box, and I just was like, "Oh my god, this is huge." And I put it up against my Logitech wheel, and the circumference, I guess, of the Logitech wheel comes out to about where the paddle shifters are, and then this is an actual wheel. And I've seen stuff online where people said things like, you know, the jumping from the G29s to, and maybe like the low end Thrustmasters to your, to your Fanatic, I don't know how you say that, Club Sport wheels and stuff, and obviously direct drive and above. I don't think you get above that, but you know what I mean. It's like going from a toy to like the real deal, and you see people say it all the time. And I saw the measurements for the wheel and thought, um, okay, well that's cool, whatever, but you really just don't quite get it until you've experienced it yourself. Um, so yeah, I'll kind of be just giving some initial impressions. I've only been playing with it for collectively maybe like 30 minutes since I got it yesterday, so I had to do some work to get Sim Commander set up and get it all working properly. Um, so yeah, this weekend when I do my usual iGPS race on Saturday, that'll be my first real run with it in race conditions. Uh, so hopefully everything works well. I've been testing with it a little bit tonight, and while it didn't pick me up anytime, I also wasn't really trying very hard either. So, and like I said, I still got to perfect settings and get everything working. But for now, uh, figured I would focus this video on just testing two different things. One, the new wheel, and two, uh, well, you're seeing it on the screen. Uh, much to the surprise of pretty much everybody, iRacing, well, NASCAR debuted the new Next Gen Cup car yesterday, and as part of that debut, they included it as iRacing put it out, and uh, the Pro Invitational race ran with these cars, and then they came out and said, "Oh, by the way, they're available to you guys as well." Talking about the general public. So here we are. Um, haven't driven a whole lot. I drove it a little bit around Darlington, especially after I got this hooked up, just to see how this drove and worked. So kind of go into a little bit. But yeah, not going to do a technical breakdown of the next gen car because there's several other videos out there that have already kind of done that. Um, but yeah, as you can tell, pretty much designed to look a little more stock from the outside. It's the Ford Mustang, uh, and pretty clearly based on the lines and its appearance. It's supposed to, even though back here it says GT, it's pretty clearly supposed to be the GT500, looking at this nose piece here and everything else. So yeah, you can see the hood vents that they're using now. Apparently no grill tape is allowed anymore, so because of the way the engines are cooled now with the front grille and these vents. It's got a stepped splitter on the front end, so you can kind of see it's a little bit raised up here in the center. Can't turn the vehicle all the way over, but I guess underside it's got like a flat tray that goes underneath it and then causes air to exit out here on the sides. I believe we got the new side exhaust, and I believe it's dual exhaust on both sides. Back end, it's got a shorter rear end back here, quarter panel area, than the previous generation car did, to more accurately resemble the street version. Spoiler size is going to change depending on track. I'm going to be driving around Darlington, so the spoiler's going to be a lot smaller. As you can tell, it's kind of like the spoiler on the cars now, black, and then a little bit of clear up top. Backside, you can see it's got a rear diffuser, which is where that exit comes out, to create some underbody downforce. Ground in other racing, I think in NASCAR they're calling it underbody aero. In other forms of racing, it's ground effect is the term that they're using. So the diffuser is supposed to help with dirty air hitting the front of a following car, make it a little easier for following cars to follow and eventually pull out and make it pass. But the part that really got me, that was kind of cool, that you couldn't tell from the testing images, was the fact that the rear end is rounded off just like an actual Mustang. Used to drive me nuts with the NASCAR Mustang that's currently running in the real world and on iRacing officially, is the rear end is completely flat, but if you look at an actual Mustang, it's not flat at all. It looks just like this. And then so if you kind of do this, and you can kind of see this little deck that comes from the on the recorder panel, that is right off the real car. So that's pretty cool. Can't see much of the interior here, but it's pretty basic. I kind of hope they work on this a little bit before the cars actually debut, and this is just kind of how it looks in the testing mode. Oh, new wheels, those aluminum wheels, single lug. I don't think that's going to make a big difference in iRacing too much. But single lug, they've switched from the typical 5-lug wheels to a single lug, so it's going to be more like an IndyCar or sports car stop. Refueling has changed too. I think the way it sounds to me, they're getting rid of the old school gas cans and going to something more like what the sports cars and IndyCar have, where it's a guy with a hose that clamps in, and it fills that way. 5-speed sequential shifter has replaced the trusty old 4-speed H pattern. Only real gripe with that is the fact that actual Mustangs don't have that. I have a Mustang GT in my garage, and it's a 6-speed H pattern. But I'm sure someday that'll die out. So yeah, that's what it looks like. I'll hop into a test session and just kind of turn a few laps around Darlington. Yep, and as you can tell, I just have the generic iRacing paint scheme on it. Have I had time to go in and actually basically transfer the Gen 6 paint scheme over to this thing. Not that there's any rush. There's currently an official series being run using these cars. And then there's an unofficial fixed setup series that's running these cars. While at the same time, we still have Class A open and fixed, NIS open and fixed, and then the Coke series is still using the old car. They haven't really said when we're switching to these cars. I would assume next year. Especially for Coke and NIS, those are absolutely going to finish out the year on the Gen 6 cars, but I'm kind of wondering if maybe the Class A series will switch to these in the meantime, since those are only based on the 12-week seasons and not a full year series. But maybe they've said more on that, maybe not, I don't know. I have to double check. But anyway. New garage. Tire stuff doesn't look any different. But here we are in the actual garage session. Steering pinion has changed from steering ratio. And they're using foreigner units instead of freedom units. It was a joke. Steering offset, thank God, still the same. So I saw the millimeter stuff, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I don't have metric. Anyway, front. We can now adjust the front and rear master cylinders. So us that aren't used to that setting in oval cars are very confused on how that works. I'm still very confused on how that works because I've tried figuring that setting out in road course cars, and I still have no idea exactly how that's different from brake bias. I know what brake bias does, but adjusting the size of the master cylinder, I haven't quite figured out like when it's more appropriate to adjust the master cylinders versus brake bias to get what you want. Something I saw on the tech breakdown for these cars that I don't know is modeled in iRacing yet is that apparently they've got ride height limiters. So even though NASCAR doesn't have a ride height rule, from what I understand, the cars will only be able to sink down to a certain height before they stop going down. So they won't be riding on the ground anymore like they used to, supposedly. I think is how I understand that. But the shock settings have blown up. Previously it was just bump, rebound, and that was it. But now we have high and low speed compression and rebound, high speed slope, high speed compression slope, high speed rebound slope. The track bar is no longer a thing because this car now has independent rear suspension. So that setting is gone. I thought the purpose of it looks like. Did I miss something? Did they get rid of the bump stops or shock springs or whatever? Yeah, I don't see any settings for those. So this car might actually make a little more sense to me now. Bump stops were killing me. I could not figure those suckers out to save my life. Sorry, I have to look past my wheel here. So it looks like ARB preload arm and diameter, so we have rear ARB again. Gen 6 didn't have that. Diff preload. So that's another new setting to the stock cars. We have never been able to adjust the differential settings. So yeah, that's interesting. It's a little bit more old school as far as like having the rear ARB and apparently no bump stops or shock springs. So it's interesting. Anyway, So a lot of stuff, a lot of new stuff to get used to in the garage and figure out. That by itself might make, though, but set up part of the car fun again. But anyway, let's get on track. So that oscillating, I gotta sort out, but one thing that this wheel does have as a feature is it will vibrate when you're sitting still in the car. And it probably does it when you're at speed too, but it's not quite as noticeable because you're getting all the other forces as well. So that's definitely a change. Engine sounds a little different. The startup sound is different. And the dash, you can't really tell because of how my FOV is. I gotta do some tweaking to my rig to get everything set up the way I want it to be. It's a little late where I'm at, so. Yeah, sounds are a little bit different, and the dash is slightly different because you can actually see what gear you're in the dash. But anyway, talking about the cool feature was that this wheelbase, this is oscillating. This isn't the actual feature I was talking about. It will vibrate when the engine starts. And I had read about that feature and thought, well, that's pretty neat, you know. I mean, I didn't think anything of it until I sat down in my rig in this car fired up, and the wheelbase started vibrating, and I thought, oh wow, holy crap. It threw me back 11, 12 years to when I was racing cars for real. It was just kind of shocking to me how such a small feature like that had such an effect on me, because I was like, whoa, oh my god, just immediate flashback to those days. So that's a pretty neat little thing. So if you get one of these wheels, definitely make sure that option's checked, because it's pretty, that is a pretty authentic deal. So go turn some laps. Excuse me if they're ugly. I haven't driven on Darlington in a while other than just screwing around today. And so yeah.
Pit lane speed limit is 45 miles per hour.
The way I understand it is, yeah, like I said, haven't run Darlington in a while, so I got the stripe already. So to downshift, you do have to blip the throttle, but on upshifts it looks like you don't. And that's not because of any...
Just done a 28.8.
That's not because of any sort of driving aids that I have in play. It's all... I think that's part of the car's sequential gearbox now.
That one was over 28.7.
Now, some of my control of the car is diminished because having the I've had to really adjust my rig because of how big this wheelbase is. And the throttle especially is in a really awkward position. It's really hard for me to, especially at full throttle, like I'm like pretty much touching it with my toe. So the default setup at Darlington does feel a little bit tight. I mean, the car definitely feels different than the Gen 6. It feels more planted. You can kind of send it off. I mean, I know I've popped the wall a couple times already, but you can send it off into the corner and it'll stick. May or may not be a good thing, but when I've driven the Gen 6 car around here, and even the Xfinity car in the truck,
you're now 0.1 off your best.
pretty much it kind of feels like you throw it into the corner. And just kind of hang on for dear life going through.
Your last lap time was at 28.5.
1 and 2 especially. One thing I haven't done so far is get the car loose and spin out. So that's a little bit annoying because
that was at 28.5, but less than a tenth off your best.
Means the car just has, you know, limitless grip. Probably gonna wash out the front end before the rear end. So
you've just done a 28.8. You're currently 0.3, slower than your best.
So yeah, probably not setting any world records.
Time was at 28.7. That puts you 0.2 off your best.
For lap time. Not really trying to, just kind of screwing around really. I'm sure if you set it up a certain way, you can make it loose and spin out on you. But I've seen videos and read some comments about, oh well, the car is definitely hard to drive because people are spinning out and crashing in practice sessions and races and stuff. And I have to laugh at that.
29.2. You're now 0.7 off your best.
The hardest part for me is staying out of the wall. But it's definitely, I'm pretty bad and I'm not even remotely loose, so I don't know how people are spinning out so much. But let's see. Oh yeah, and missing pit road, I'm gonna do that too. Switch over to fastest lap. And most of the reason I'm just watching this is because I want to hear the exterior sound. So, that's pretty much my quick little review of the next gen car. The Accuforce was acting a little different. I don't know if it's because I launched from the iRacing UI instead of from Sim Commander. Kind of hope that didn't have anything to do with it. In fact, I'll jump out and check the options real quick. So I guess if the options aren't grayed out, then that means that Sim Commander wasn't playing around with it. So I have to check that out, see what's going on there. But other than that, though, it's the car itself is okay. At Darlington, I've seen some video reviews where guys took it to like the short tracks and it drove really nicely. I think some of these tracks like Darlington, Phoenix, New Hampshire, the ones that take a little bit of talent to drive on, and the car uses the lower downforce, higher horsepower package. Guys, I think are generally gonna like it. Um, I've heard the road courses kind of have a problem where the car just has no grip whatsoever, particularly Coda. Uh, and then, but I've heard nothing but bad things about the 1.5 mile tracks. So when Charlotte comes up in a week or so, I might try to run a race there just to kind of see how it really is, or at least do some test sessions with it and see how it really is. But I will say, even though it may not drive in a way that us old school fans would like it to drive, you know, we want it to be harder and challenge us, you know, like the old Cup cars did. Um, I will give NASCAR and the manufacturers credit for at least coming up with some really good looking race cars. Uh, let's just hope that once they finalize everything for next year, that they race as good as they look. So I'm gonna hop out, maybe run a couple laps, but this time I'm going to load up Sim Commander and use that. That might be what it was. Okay. So I think the problem was that when I loaded up iRacing, I was using the iRacing force feedback, which I haven't adjusted for this yet. I didn't use Sim Commander to start it up. that'll lead to a completely different feel from what I've noticed. So I'll just need to make sure that when I get ready to get into a race, that I need to set off Sim Commander first, and then jump into iRacing and go from there.
No data found for this car and track. Please tune manually from a recorded lap.
Yeah, it should have. Unless that was the cloud thing. Weird. Anyway. Like I said, still got some stuff to sort out with it, so. Well, there we go. Wheels vibrating, but not like oscillating and shaking everywhere. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Skidding off pit road's the first time I've gotten it to jump sideways on me. I will say though that the wheel feels really good. Once you, if I ever get smart enough to actually drive and use it right, it's it feels good. Much better than Logic's
The lap time was at
G29. No clattering or rattling, no gaps in the wheel. In terms of the feeling and everything. Sucker's heavy. I was driving around with it earlier, and
The lap time was 28.6.
that was the one thing that really struck me. I mean, you can adjust that heaviness to be as heavy or as light as you want. I think I have it on one of the heavier settings, but it was kind of surprising.
You're currently 0.1 off your best.
There we go. Yeah, it took hitting the apron to make it jump sideways. So I wonder if you're going to want to put a little extra throttle, keep a little throttle in it all the time because of the diff.
That lap was at 29.1. That puts you 0.4 slower than your best.
So that was kind of a cool feeling. I don't know if it's because the front end started to wash out or what. But the wheel, as I came off a 2 there, and the car kind of lifted.
That last lap was at 28.7. You're now 0.1 off your best.
Okay, getting wide open through there. But as I came off a 2, I felt this thing just immediately jump to the right. Like, not jump to the right, but it just went super light. And, like, as if the car came off the ground and the weight came off the front tires. And, you know, like you would expect. So that's pretty cool. I think this is something I'm really gonna like once I get it dialed in. I mean, I like it as it is now, but I'm really gonna like it, I think, once I get it dialed in and um, have an idea what I'm looking for in terms of feel and everything else. So I have no idea what that sound was. So yeah, that will about do it for this little test here. Um, like I said, I'll be obviously definitely using this when the F1 race comes up in a couple days. So that'll be fun, and see how things go from there. Uh, so yeah, if you're looking at getting a direct drive system, I would definitely recommend the Accuforce. It's probably one of the cheapest ones out there. Part of the reason I went with it too is because, um, aside from the fact that it's one of the least expensive options available, I had read that because of the amount of stuff you can tweak, it's kind of like how I was using the IRFFB system on the Logitech wheel. It has similar settings that you can adjust for this wheel to create a more realistic feeling. Um, and so that's kind of what sold me on going to. I had been looking at this for a long time, but I finally just went ahead and went with it because, I thought about Fanatec because there's all those wheels you can switch in and out and everything else. But ultimately, I saw there was a good deal on this one, so I jumped on it. And so far, about an hour's worth of usage over a couple of days. Definitely liking it. So uh, I'm sure my feelings will improve as I use it more and more. But anyway, that'll do it for this video. Be sure to tune in on Saturday on Facebook and Twitch. I need to update my Facebook stuff on here. I changed the names around so that would be a little easier to find me on Facebook. And possibly Instagram. I don't know. That's been a little harder to figure out. But make sure you tune in to Twitch or YouTube, or Twitch or Facebook for the live stream, and then later YouTube for the video for the iRacing Grand Prix Series race, and anything else I decide to race this weekend or next or over the next week. Yeah, thanks for watching. Catch y'all later.